In fact, my paper says that it would even be a little higher.
Yeah, well, depending on where you live.
Well, welcome to everyone. Just as you're walking in, let me try that again. Okay, welcome everyone to our our Twilight Bible study on Tuesday, not daily devotional. This is Twilight Bible study, Tuesday Twilight Bible study. So welcome to those of you on Facebook and on YouTube and Zoom. On Zoom, I've got Steve McMeans and the Elwoods, and also it looks like Cedric and Lorraine have joined us here as well. Here in the office, I've got Art Truman and Maria Kasner and Armando with us as well. So I'm also passing out a Palestine and New Testament times map. This was very interesting. Got a little feedback there from one of the Rogerses. It sounds like you've taken care of it there.
Wait a minute. Chocolate. The white thing here?
So if you've got a New Testament, those of you online, if you have a New Testament with a Palestine and New Testament times map on it, you might want to get it out as we look at our passage tonight, because there's some place names that are mentioned that are very interesting. We're in Mark chapter 7 again. This time we're going to look at the last 14 verses, 24 through 37 of Mark chapter 7. We did most of 1 through 23 last week of Mark 7. And you'll remember that that in that passage, Jesus dealt with the criticisms brought by the Pharisees and scribes against his disciples for not washing their hands before they ate. That is, not following the purification rituals that were required at the time by following the tradition of the elders, as the Pharisees cited. So now in the last part of Mark chapter 7, we have two miracles, and what's immediately interesting about these about the first miracle is that we're told that explicitly that the woman whose daughter is being healed is a Gentile. So you immediately have purification issue being addressed here on several different levels. Not simply that Jesus is conversing and associating with a Gentile, but a woman also, again. So again, like the woman at the well, practically all of the issues there that are frequently raised about Jesus meeting a woman in that kind of space would apply here as well. But lots of interesting things to address. So why don't we get to it by reading, first of all, the first miracle, which is verses 24 through 30. It begins with from there he set out. Well, from there is apparently on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee. That is the last place that we're given that he was present. So he is in the Galilee region, near the Capernaum area, I believe. And then verse 24 says, from there he set out and went away to the region of Tyre. If you have a map there, you can see Tyre on the coast, northwest of the Sea of Galilee, Tyre. And that is right in the middle of the Phoenician area. And he entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice, but a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syro-Phoenician origin. Actually, the word that's used there, that's translated as Gentile, is Greek. It said she was Greek, meaning culturally Greek speaking and all of that. But for the purposes of this context, she was Gentile, of Syro-Phoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. But she answered him, sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he said to her, for saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. Oh, being attacked by a fly. All right. So, lots of interesting things here. Let's start from the beginning. So, what's interesting here is that Jesus has already criticized the Pharisees and scribes who were critical of the disciples, and for these regulations. And now he's going to take a leap over these regulations, the boundaries between Jews and Gentiles, by having an exchange with this Gentile woman. And we've got somebody at the door here. Hold on just a second. I can let them in. Hello, it's Patrick. Hi, Teresa. I'll buzz you in. Yeah. Armando, you might want to just check to make sure that she got in. Yeah. Thank you. So, so that's the first thing, is that, hi, Teresa. No worries.
Absences is going to be like this off and on
That's
for
okay.
until after November.
All right. You
Okay.
come when you're able. We're
Well,
just glad
okay.
to see you. Yeah. Yeah, that fly is a very interesting fly because it's attacking me as well. Don't know how it
I
got
wonder
in.
why the fly is here.
Yeah.
You came with me?
No, it was
no.
already
It was
here. It was
here.
already here.
Oh, okay.
It's a
I've
very
noticed the fly
strange
fly
fly
on the
because it's,
I've
yeah.
noticed that.
Might be a demon fly.
I came here
Yeah,
2 hours
probably a
ago.
demon fly, as Steve says.
Very good now.
Yeah, or a devout fly because he's in the church. Yeah,
It's a devout fly.
yeah,
I like to think that.
yeah,
Even the fly can be devout.
yes. So we just finished reading the first miracle of Mark, chapter 7, verse 24 through, yeah, Mark 7, 24 through 30. And making the point that Jesus is crossing boundaries here, way up in this region of Syria, essentially, that would have been a Gentile region. I want to say a few words about Galilee because he's going to go back through Galilee according to the text. And in the Roman times, Galilee was made up of cities that were both Jewish and Greek.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Jesus' city of Nazareth, where he grew up, where he was said to be from, was a Jewish town, but a couple of the other towns north of there were more Greek speaking, like Sepphoris and Tiberias. Those would have been more Gentile cities or towns. So now he is, according to the text, is way up in Tyre. He's
Here.
gone all the way up here. Yeah, he was started in North Galilee and went up there.
Was that Mark?
This is Gospel of Mark. This is Jesus,
Oh,
talking
Jesus.
about Jesus and his travels.
Mhm.
And so he meets this woman who is Gentile. The word there is actually Greek, commonly translated as Gentile, because that's how it was understood by the Jewish audience. You'll notice that David Bentley Hart translates it as Greek. Verse 26 is translated as Greek.
Well, that's the same as in King James.
And the King James is also Greek.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Greek may be actually more accurate. Some of these translations are thinking too hard sometimes. That the context here certainly is pointing to the differences between Jews and Gentiles. And so that's the reason it's translated as Gentile, which it often did mean that. But it's important to remember that the Gospel of Mark was written mostly for a Greek audience. So it might make more sense to translate it as Greek rather than Gentile. So
Was he the first to translate that?
what was who the first to translate?
Mark?
Mark is writing in Greek.
Oh,
Yeah, he's writing here in Greek. And this issue is interesting because he actually uses a Aramaic word
mhm.
in the second miracle, which we'll get to in a minute, which is an interesting language discussion. But in this case, what's interesting, there's several things interesting. One here is that the woman is asking him for help because his daughter has an unclean spirit. That is translated as unclean spirit in the NRSV in verse 25, and then as demon in verse 30. And yeah, and the same in David Bentley Hart as well.
Devil over here.
Actually, demon also in verse 26 in David Bentley Hart. So he does demon both times. I think there may be two different Greek words used there, but perhaps not very different from one another.
Any difference between demons and devils?
Not in much in the King James, no. No, it wouldn't have been too much difference.
Demon sounds more, how do you say it?
Well,
Scary.
in the English,
Devil.
yeah, it's a terrifying word.
Mhm.
I don't think in the first century that it was as terrifying. It was more common. We had this discussion this morning in devotional about the concept of a demon.
Mhm.
I tried to make, or I won't say try, Cedric, I'll say I made the argument that I don't think we can understand very well what was meant by demon in the first century, or what's being presented here.
Mhm.
That it was a different world. I said that in the first century, demons were as common as coffee cups. And
Really?
so, yeah, demons were all over the place, and they were constantly referred to and referenced. And my point is that we don't Steve makes a very good point about many Christians do talk about demons, but not so much publicly. Like it's not something even Christians today go around talking a whole lot about. That to me is a pretty important difference in terms of our understanding of what a demon is in our context and what it was in the first century.
Patrick,
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
whether or not they talk about demons, they talk about angels all the time. So, as in terms of having an understanding about demons and angels, I think we do. They're ministering spirits, as the Hebrew says.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear you say more. I don't think I really am convinced that people don't understand what spirits are today. Am I wrong?
Hardly.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a sociologist question almost, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it could be, certainly. We could do surveys and find out what people mean when they talk about spirits. Certainly, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the concept of spirits.
Well, you've got an audience there. Ask them too
Yeah,
what they think.
well,
You are not wrong.
Yeah, so Cedric thinks that I'm not wrong, that people don't really understand what a spirit is today. I think,
I didn't say I understood it.
I mean, lots of people talk about demons and angels. I grant you that. Lots of Christians, a lot more talk about angels than demons, though, right?
Right.
Yeah. Did I get agreement there, Steve?
Are we talking about Christians here?
Anybody, much more talk about angels than demons, it seems to me.
Probably. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Okay.
matter that much.
But, well, I think it does because
Talk more about demons and entities and angels.
who does?
Me.
Oh, you do.
Daily
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So we have another one here, Steve, that joins you, Armando. He talks a lot about demons too, he says.
And I will say this too, if you don't mind.
Go
I
ahead.
used to rent a room from a woman who was I think she was Pentecostal, but I'm not even sure if that's here or there. But she saw demons everywhere. Now, I thought that was way overboard on her part. She would find demonic activity in her cooking. So I know she wasn't all there, but there's all kinds of.
But why do you say that about her? I mean, you're making my point for me. Why would you say that about her?
Well, I'm just saying in this instance, it's, in my opinion, it's an example of somebody going too far with the concept.
Okay.
So I'm saying it can be abused, certainly.
Okay. All right.
But
All right.
if you don't believe in, if spirits of this kind aren't part of one's worldview, that's fine. Being a Christian wise, but I just think it's a lot more comfortable or a lot more common than people might think.
Yeah, you might be right, but that hasn't been my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't ever talk about demons. Like now I mentioned demons, but it was like, I don't know, how long ago did I ever use that word?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason for me
So,
to say it.
Yeah, honestly, I use the term entity more often when I'm talking about
Yeah,
such things because demon is kind of
I was gonna say
specific.
devil, but
okay. So you speak of entities, but those could be evil or they could be bad or good or indifferent. Yeah.
Entities.
Yeah. Interesting.
There's
Okay.
a lot of different.
So that's two on my side.
Well, no, Teresa's saying she doesn't. You've got so far we have Armando saying that he does speak of entities, but not so much the language of demons.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get hooked on the D word here.
Well, I think this is important. We're getting feedback from somebody on the line here. Hold on a second. Okay, so I think it's important that the language, because my whole point here is that the language makes a difference. That is, that what people are capable of understanding. And angels, demons, and spirits, people in our time generally don't understand these concepts. And I would say this is true of Christians as well. And I would say that the understanding that a lot of Christians express about demons and angels and spirits is extremely different from what I read in the New Testament.
Why so many variations in an interpretation between different people?
Well, in my view, it's because of the overwhelming influence of the Enlightenment and the scientific method. That it dominates how we think about the relationship between spirit and matter, or matter and anything else. That even we live in a world now that is mostly dominated by the idea that emotions, thinking, everything can be reduced to matter. That is, all these things happen in the brain. It's electrical impulses, and so the idea of spirit, it for a culture that is predominantly material in nature, is a non-starter. Like, it doesn't even get off the ground.
And I just don't understand how you can say that. You've got Dr. Robert is I don't know what kind of leading authority on religions. How do you have a bunch of religions without views of the spiritual world and demons and mystery, as you say?
Well, all you have to do is read the history, the 19th and 20th century history of religions, to see how radically influenced religions have changed because of this emphasis on the material. You've got Mormon.
But that doesn't mean we have to do that.
No. Look, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, Steve. I'm not saying that you couldn't scour the earth and find people that have an understanding of spirit. What I'm saying is the dominant viewpoint.
Okay,
So the dominant viewpoint, if you look at Mormonism, heavily oriented to the material. In fact, if you look at almost any Christian-oriented movement from the 19th century, it's heavily oriented to the material, physical substance of the universe, that truth and reality are determined by the material. That is absolutely not the case in the New Testament. I mean, there is no, they can't even conceive of this distinction between the body and the spirit, which we just naturally assume. We just naturally assume that there's a division between the body and the spirit. There's a body and there's a soul, there's a physical and the spiritual.
You just mentioned soul.
Yeah.
It's the spirit and the soul. Can they be the same or?
Right. Well, that's another complex issue. Yeah, the soul is used in many different ways. In ancient Greek, the soul really was a concept that embodied both spirit and body. It was not, the soul was not a ethereal thing. It also included the physical, what we call the physical. Again, you wouldn't find these distinctions in the ancient writings. So what I'm saying is that the whole movement of the scientific Enlightenment period, from the 18th century on, and then in the 19th century, where it began to hit the popular, the popular imagination, people began to try to save religion by showing that it in fact, it is material. And so therefore, because it's material, it's real and it's true. And so then the material became the basis for truth and reality. And I'm just saying that's very different from the first century.
Can you give me an example of how they conceive material?
Okay, heaven, for example.
Heaven,
For Mormons, heaven is a physical place.
Where is it?
It's a planet.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a physical planet.
Which
Oh,
planet?
so what you said.
And if you look, you don't have to go to Mormonism. You can go to 19th and 20th century evangelical thought, where there are references to heaven as physical place, as having a material kind of existence.
But not defined as to where that place may be.
No, and of course, Mormons, when you press them, if you say something like, well, can I take a rocket there? Most of them would answer, well, theoretically, yes, but not in reality.
Right.
Because it is a physical place. But this influence in the 19th century on the popular way of thinking and the way that the scientific method began to dominate what we take to be reality, I think has really distorted and damaged our concepts of spirit and demon and angel and the reality of these things. Because
Patrick?
yeah, go ahead, Lorraine.
Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to say. I have an attitude. Well, first of all, I think that the Mormon faith believes that each person gets their own planet. I read a book on that stuff many years ago. But anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is that now I'm going to forget that. Oh dear, sorry to hold everybody up. I knew what I wanted to say. I myself have had thoughts that if there's some folks who think that that only 140, well, I don't know what they think now, but 144,000 would get to heaven, and the rest of us would be, I don't know, scattered around here and there.
No.
And my own personal thought was
Jehovah's Witness, which is also has its roots in the 19th century.
Yes, and then
Almost
my
all
own
of
thought
these-
really was, my reward, as far as I can tell, is I don't want to hang around and play a harp. First of all, I don't know how, but I would like to. I'd like to come back here. It's a beautiful place. And that's what I'd like to do, be a shepherd here. And the other one thought was that all this talk about and evil spirits and stuff like that, I think that the more we humans try to explain evil or talk about evil, I don't mean it shouldn't be talked about, but it is important to keep a certain, I try not to talk about it much and have keep a distance from it. And in my heart and soul, I say, I have a little prayer. It's a kind of a prayer which connects me to Jesus, and I command that any evil spirits stay away from me. Through Jesus, I claim him as my God, because if we're going to talk about evil, it's very evil, and I don't want to talk about that stuff.
Well, you've got some.
But Lorraine, that means you believe in demons.
Yeah, you've got some.
Well, I don't not believe in them. Oh, yeah, I'm not saying I don't believe in them. No.
Well, and you also have some competition there, because you have people that follow C.S. Lewis who say that we need to pay more attention to evil and the devil and spirits, evil spirits, because our ignoring them is allowing them to have more control over our lives. But I absolutely
understand. You can't ignore them.
I understand what you're saying. It's very similar to what my mom used to teach me as well, which is, when you talk about devil and evil, be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
mentioned that.
I understand what you're saying, so yeah, thank you, Laura, and I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. And I don't mean to pick on Mormons, by the way. They're just an easy example. I could list 15 or 20 more examples of 19th century beliefs that were shaped by, like the Scopes monkey trial, which came later, of course, in the early 20th century, but shaped by Darwinism and the criticisms of Darwin in the 19th century, and how what happened, unfortunately, I think, is that Christians felt like they had to save Christianity from science. And the way to save Christianity from science was to try to convince people that Christianity had a material base as well, that it was rooted in the material. But in doing so, I feel that we conceptually, I think we gave away our birthright for things of the spirit. Here's one of the problems that I see with the scientific method and the dominance of science in our world is obviously not all the technological advances, right? I mean, extraordinary technological advances that have enabled healing and, dealing with poverty and all. So when I talk about science, I'm not talking about all of the wonderful technological advances. I'm talking about the domination of the scientific method over all our thinking.
Yes.
As if to say,
I think they're trying to get rid of God, frankly.
Well, I don't know about that.
Whether we're aware of it or not.
Part of me wishes they were trying to get rid of God, because then I feel they would be paying more attention. I think it's more that they're just ignoring things of the spirit. I don't think they're trying to get rid of God. I just think they're ignoring it, like it doesn't have a reality. So here's as I see the problem with appreciating a concept like a demon. Because of the influences of the sciences and the scientific method, we believe that any use of reason demands an explanation, that everything has to be explained, and it can all be unified together in a way that is coherent and that we're able to understand. But the problem with that is that that's not what reason tells us. Reason actually tells us that the world has mystery in it that can't be solved, that can't be unified. So on the one hand, you have this dominant scientific orientation that says reason demands a unity of explanation. And what I want to say in response is no, reason tells us and shows us that that's not true, that the world has mystery in it, and that there are all these things we can't understand.
Chaos, like miracles.
Yeah, all these things, all kinds of things that we cannot give an explanation for that fits a unified account. So understanding the concept of demon has to involve, it seems to be, a place for mystery in our lives. We have to call it mystery now because we no longer see the world as full of spirits. We try to diminish that. Steve is going to argue that when you say we, you mean you, and I'm going to be mean now. You mean you and the rat in your pocket? I mean, who is the we?
No,
here?
I mean my daughter and me.
I'm being mean. Go ahead.
That's okay. But look, my daughter and I, she's a witch. Whatever that religion is, it isn't pagan by her definition. That's not the kind of witch she is. But she'll tell you all day long about different spirits. The entire Native American societies believed in spirits. I'm missing what it is you're arguing against when
Well,
you're
what
arguing
I'm
with me.
arguing
Because
against.
hold on,
Okay, yeah, go
because
ahead.
I'm the one who is showing you an application for belief in evil spirits. I'm saying what I've experienced is the mystery you're talking about, and it is mystical language, but it sounds like when like you're saying, well, we should kind of capitulate to the 17th and 18th centuries and just not talk about demons, and I think that's not it.
No, I'm sorry if I gave that impression. That's not what I'm doing. Also,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I would be thrilled if the Native American cultures dominated our culture, but they don't.
Me
So that would
too.
be fantastic if they did. I would say that the cultures surrounding the practice of witches today, that your daughter is a part of, and it sounds like you have some common ground with her in that way. I would say that would be better in many respects than what we experience today. What we experience today as dominant, again, I'm emphasizing, Steve, the dominant attitudes and culture is very, it's unimaginative, it's dull, it's mechanistic, mechanical. I'm not arguing in defense of it. What I'm saying is that in order to get people to see, and when I say people, I mean Christians, in order to get Christians to see that the world is full of spirits, we've got to start in a place that they can grasp. And it seems to me the place to start is to get them to, most Christians today, I feel, won't even admit mystery because they want to say, well, God clears everything up, so there's no mystery. I think that's
Boy, do I
terrible.
wish.
Who are these Christians you're hanging out with, dude?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that the a dominant notion of
I understand.
Christianity.
I
Yeah,
understand.
the dominant notion.
But
So, yeah, don't misunderstand me. I'm not defending it. The only thing I'm saying is I don't think we can go back to the first century by fiat. That is, I don't think we can go by simply saying first century is right. We need to start using the word demon. I don't think we can do that. I think we have to show people, we have to somehow open people's eyes to this world that is full of spirits. But in doing so, we're fighting a really difficult battle because most people conceptually are oriented to the world in this very mechanistic way that is essentially material. I'm grateful for the exceptions, and like you, Steve, I could think certainly of exceptions, but I think they're more. I think they're rare.
Boy, yeah. I mean, I want to tell you that I trust your experience more than mine, but I kind of can't capitulate that much. I've just talked to too many people that believe in the spiritual world.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
that's as a compromise. I can offer a scientific demon. It's called Maxwell's demon, and it's the official demon of science. And I don't think they allowed more than one. So we're monodemonistic. Anyway, if you put two gas cylinders together and a narrow pipe between them, this little demon lurks in the pipe, and when it sees oxygen coming, it sends it one way. When it sees nitrogen coming, it goes the other way. And it reverses the flow of entropy, which cannot be done. And that's, I think, why it gets the name demon. And Maxwell proposed it, and I don't remember where we go from there.
Yeah, it is fascinating, of course, and this is part of the point. Part of my point as well is that if you talk to a good scientist, they're often more than willing to concede that there are mysteries in the world. What I'm talking about, I think, Steve, is like the heavily popular notions of yeah, and the heavily popular notions of the spiritual, and the way that it just doesn't seem to me to be very much a part of our language. That is the language of the spirit. I mean,
Yeah,
I talk
to
a
me,
lot about spirits, but
maybe it's
I'm
because
pretty-
of my Orthodox upbringing.
yeah, maybe.
You know, that I know, you know, I've read so much.
Yeah.
17th century, 16th century, 15, or you know, going back when people did believe in demons, you know,
Yeah.
and so it is common language for me.
That's good. And there are certainly traditions like Orthodoxy and other traditions that uphold the language. Though again, these are minority traditions, I feel. But yes, Armando has his hand up.
I
Oh,
also
I do too.
grew up in a
Hey,
I'm not
hey.
but a family that talks and believes a lot about demons in the spirit realm and that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are certainly examples.
What did he say?
He said that he also knows of a family that speaks of demons and
You grew up with them.
that you grew up in with a
I grew up in more of like his the daughter. She's a witch.
uh-huh.
I grew up in a kind of witch household.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there are these traditions in which you know, there are beliefs in spirits, but my concern really is even more is deeper than that, I suppose, is what I want to say. It has to do with our being able to see the world as created by God, as full of spirit, full of life, that is not, you know, that cannot be understood and reduced to the material.
I wanted to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Lorraine.
I've had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute,
Oh,
Lorraine.
go ahead.
I didn't realize Faye has had her hand up there. Yeah, go ahead, Faye.
That's okay. Well, I just wanted to get back to the passage for a second. And at the part about when Jesus says, first, let the children eat all they want.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you could talk about that and the theology. It's just making me think of other times when Jesus really prioritizes children. I don't know. And I thought that was nice. I wondered if you'd unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. I'll certainly do that. Lorraine, did you have a point, another point about the demon position before we move on?
Just something for me that's really nice and nice enough that I'm not even sure that I care if it's my hang up to be involved this way. But if you want to see spirits, that check out the cats that I feed and take care of. There's all kinds of spirits there, and it's great. That's one thing. And another thing is that an absolute miracle happened. I mentioned it once before, but I had 7 kittens, and they were not even they were still breastfeeding. They were very, very young, and a place I hadn't called in a long time. And she's always busy. She's a roommate, no-kill place, and I told her that I had 7. I had just gotten the 7 kittens, by the way, just like maybe a half hour before this, and it was late it was getting dark on a Thursday evening, and I told her I had 7 kittens, and would she please take them? I didn't know what to do, and she's always busy, and she was up to her eyeballs with stuff to do. I just know that. And she whispered into the phone, I'm not supposed to do this, but bring them right over. Now, I want to tell you that was an
Yeah, that
absolute
is
miracle.
that's a miracle. Yeah. Okay, let's
Yes.
move on. We're running out of time here. Let's move on. Okay. So Faye asked about the response of Jesus. Let the children be fed first. Well, he's talking about Israel and the Jewish people. So it sounds like a put down, and certainly there are tensions between Jews and Gentiles on all sorts of levels here, while also dealing with the difference, the purification issues as well. And he says, "For it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs."
This is only Jewish children? There aren't any Gentile children?
Well, the point here is not children. Children are being referred to as
Children of God?
as children of God. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the children being yes, the children of God, the children of Israel. So the point there being that the message is first for Israel, which is in effect what happened historically. But there in his response is the implication that it will be spread later. The reference to dogs may not be, we do know, of course, in Middle Eastern areas, and particularly in the first century, dogs would have been a very negative thing
As they are now.
as it is now in the Middle East. However, there is a bit of a qualification here, and David Bentley Hart brings this up. The Greek is little dogs, puppies, and it would have been more likely that puppies would have been allowed into the house to eat the food on the floor. Probably not dogs. Most dogs would have been wild dogs, but little puppies might have been allowed into the house to eat the food, the crumbs on the floor. So it might not have been quite as negative as it often is to speak of dogs in the Middle Eastern culture. Now, here's the interesting thing. She responds like another rabbi in argument with him. That is, she doesn't respond. She's arguing with her. Sir, even the dog with him. Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. And in Mark, Jesus in Matthew, it's slightly different response. He says, "You're basically your faith has healed your daughter." Here he says, "For saying that you may go," which may be the same as your faith. But the emphasis is on the argument, because you've made a good argument. You're right. I'm wrong. You should. The demon has left your daughter. So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. Pretty remarkable that Jesus admits that he's wrong. I'll let you. Yeah, he admits to a woman that the woman was right and he was wrong. Yeah. And a Gentile woman at that. So, yeah, extraordinary.
She said it was.
She said, even the dogs under the table get the crumbs. And he said, fair point. Your daughter is healed. Yeah. So, very interesting. Let's move on to the next miracle. But I want you to look at the map, those of you here that I passed out. In verse 31, it says, "Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went by way of Sidon," which is almost due north. It's northeast along the coast, and towards the Sea of Galilee. So Sidon is in the opposite direction of the Sea of Galilee. To get down to Decapolis, which is on the southeastern side of the Sea of Galilee. So the commentaries I've read said geographically this verse doesn't make any sense. Right. So
even taken from Sidon to Galilee.
What's that?
What route would he even have taken from Sidon to Galilee?
To Decapolis, even, because it says he goes to the middle of Decapolis, to the region of the Decapolis, the Greek there is actually in the middle area there. So I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what happened there, whether there was a mistake made in the transcribing, or whether there was a path or a road that we don't know about that maybe went. I mean, it's not unheard of to bypass mountains to go, to go north to get south.
Yeah, but it was just going up the coast from Tyre to Sidon.
Yeah.
No mountains involved.
The
Exactly.
mountains get higher in that area.
They do get a little bit
Yeah, but
higher,
He may have been traveling along the coast.
but
with the
exactly
mountains.
why would you do that?
Yeah.
It's
It almost seems like Sidon is displaced somehow. Everything else that's talked about is further south.
yeah. It's hard to make sense of. That's exactly what the commentaries say. It's very difficult to make sense of this. Now, I will say let's keep reading. Verse 32, they brought to him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private. Very interesting. I wish our healing friends on television would read this. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one, but the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, he has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear, mute to speak. Yes, Maria.
Why does he say that? He often says, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, this is known as the messianic secret, which is a central notion in the Gospel of Mark. That is, why does he tell people not to say anything? He doesn't do it in every instance. I think in Matthew, in Mark 5.
He's supposed
Yeah.
to be showing God's glory and all this. He's running out of time.
Well, there are several reasons, I think. We talked about this in the devotional yesterday morning, but I think there are several reasons why why we have this messianic secret. One is that Jesus is very leery of crowds, and particularly crowds that have messianic expectations, because remember that the concept of Messiah at the time was mostly one that involved expecting a political king, yes. Right? And I think part of what's going on is that Jesus is trying to control his own message and not allow the crowds to control the message. Because if the crowds determine the message, then he is a political figure, which is not what he wants to do. Yeah, and I think that's a big reason. He is also, I think, maybe trying to buy some time. That is, I think you're right. It's a razor's edge, but in all of the Gospels, we see that he's very much focused on teaching his disciples. So one reason for putting things off a bit and not getting more attention is that he may feel like he needs more time to teach his disciples.
And they're not around at this point. Right?
Yeah, well, they come and go at times. Yeah, no, the disciples are with him at this point.
Within this passage?
Well, within this passage, it says he took him away in private. As to whether the disciples are with him when he goes north, it doesn't really say. My sense is that they probably were with him, that is the 12, but it doesn't really say. because the last part of, looking at verse 17, it's his disciples that are gathered around him.
Just a note on geography here.
Yeah.
The verse 31 in the King James might explain this business about Tyre and Sidon, because it reads, and again, departing from the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. It doesn't say that he went from Tyre to Sidon heading north, all right, which is what we've sort of inferred previously when we were discussing the geography. So he may have been to both places, and now he's departing from that piece of coastline heading inland.
So it doesn't mention Sidon?
It does.
What
It's just he departs from both places. I mean, what are they, about 30 miles apart or so here? And it says,
I think that might be an attempt to fix the problem of the text.
departing from the coasts, plural, of Tyre and Sidon.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that he went north.
Right, but I think that is an attempt by the scholars of the 1600s to fix a problem that they knew was in the text.
Which is that
the Greek says that he went through Sidon to get to Galilee. And so, yeah, so so the point is that the original manuscripts, most of the original Greek manuscripts, have this phrase of going through Sidon to get to Galilee, which is hard to make sense of. Though it would make sense if it did say, he was on the coast and then departed the coast, but that's not exactly.
All right. Well,
but fair point from the King. They get an A for effort.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Lorraine.
They have him healing this man, Jesus, in this way, and I think he's done it another time as well, or he does it another time as well. But he put his fingers in his ears. I mean, most of the people, they just touch him or he touches them and they're cured. But this time he put his fingers in his ears and then he spat and touched his tongue. Is what's the meaning of it? What's happening there?
Well,
why that method? Why,
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I know that, let me see if I have any hints here from one of my commentaries. I don't think so. Let's see. He does do similar things in other healing, I think that, I don't know. I just don't know. I can't answer that question.
I think it's a mystery of some sort. I actually do.
Well, all healing is a mystery, an important point.
Some people are healed on their own faith, and some need a little bit of a show.
Yeah, for themselves, maybe.
Yeah. And some of us need to be knocked upside the head. So.
Well, you said it.
Yeah, speaking for myself.
Me too.
Yeah, go ahead, Art.
Can I attempt, to try to draw some kind of a synthesis here?
Yes, please do.
So, I mean, it seems as though we've been, identifying a dichotomy, if you like, between Christianity and science and scientific method going through this discussion, right? Whereas on the scientific side, we have terms like materialism and reason and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And on the Christian side, we have terms like spirit and truth and faith and God's creation and so forth. And perhaps the term mystery, which maybe crosses over both sides. But I suppose my question might be, is there any possibility that we would have an element of materialism on the Christian side, or elements of spirit and truth on the scientific side, a sort of exchange or commonality between these things? Because you also mentioned at one point, you spoke about a unified account.
Yeah. So the I think the way that I would address that would be to speak about um, the life of the Spirit, to think about that the crossover there would be in living the life of the Spirit. That is one key feature in all of this, I think, for both Christians and scientists and all of us, is humility, for example.
Oh, good one.
Right? That there would be, that I wish desperately that Christians, that there's so many people that identify as Christian that we see on television and the news, and I wish we would see more humility from people who call themselves Christian.
Thank you for that.
I wish that we would see more humility from scientists and philosophers as well. So when I talk about things of the Spirit, I immediately want to go to relationships between people and showing gentleness and kindness and goodness and patience, and that having, and the atheist will say, yeah, but I don't have to believe in God to do those. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about things of the Spirit, right? So if you don't like the term God, we don't have to, but we don't have to go there. But what I am talking about when I speak of things of the Spirit, I am talking about that kind of life that cannot be reduced to the material.
Right.
It can't be reduced to the material world. And so it's mysterious. Yes. Who's that?
This is
Oh,
Faye.
yeah.
That's lovely.
Rachel Faye.
Time's
Yes.
up. Mom wanted to make a quick comment.
Yes, of course.
I wonder, it seems to have been one of Jesus' first miracles. Perhaps he's sort of experimenting.
Yeah, that's a good possibility, Gracia Faye, that this is one of Jesus' first miracles, she said, and maybe he is kind of experimenting. That's a possibility. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Good possibility. Anyway, yeah, thank you for that, Gracia Faye, and thank you for your question, Art. I do think that these things I do think there are ways to talk about them, but it seems to me that we have to leave a place for mystery. That is, we have to be comfortable with saying, well, first of all, being comfortable like Jesus and saying, you're right, I'm wrong. And we have to be comfortable with saying, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. What we do know, again, are the fruit of the Spirit, and we know that we're supposed to love one another and take care of those who have needs. All right. Well, we're out of time. We're over time, and I want to make sure that we take a prayer request. So let's and that fly is back again. Let's take prayer requests. I know we want to pray for Leola. I don't have Leola Greer is her last name. I don't have an update. Have you heard anything? No, I don't have an update. The last I heard was from Sherry Glab on Sunday that she was in the hospital and recovering, but she had, I think she got pneumonia was the problem, and so she developed some other difficulties because of that. So let's keep Leola in our prayers. Wow, that's a persistent fly. Other prayer requests. Yes, Teresa.
Carol Schrick, Carol. She suffered from a very sort of fast deteriorating type of illness. I don't know the name, but it's something in the category of how do you say Parkinson.
Oh,
But it's kind of stiffness.
right.
She could not Oh, every time, every month or 2 months I see her, she just goes downhill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll pray for Carol.
She couldn't even communicate.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's very, very difficult. Other prayer
Carol who?
requests? Carol
Carol Shurick. I don't know
Shurick.
her.
Carol Shurick.
She,
Okay.
This is a friend of Teresa's.
well, she
Okay.
was a
Thank
music director at one time at the United Methodist Church in Chino.
So a former music director at a Methodist church. Yes, Art.
I'd like to offer up a prayer to all of the patients in the Walnut Valley Senior Living Center. There's an outbreak of COVID within the center, wherein the patients are confined to their rooms and unable to even go into the common areas. I have some friends that are confined there as we speak. So, just a general prayer for those,
Yeah,
for the wellness of those that are inside of that facility.
yeah, we've had increase in the number of COVID cases all over. So, yeah, we'll certainly remember the patients at the center in Walnut. Other prayer requests? Yes,
Yes.
Lorraine, go ahead.
I'd like us to pray for an end to all the suffering in Sudan and the other places that we know about, but especially Sudan, because apparently they're in a big mess, and a very big mess that's been going on for months and months and months, and getting a little better and then a little worse, and they're on the point of starvation.
Yeah, it's very, very unstable there. Yeah, we'll certainly pray for those suffering in the Sudan region. All right, let's pray. Thank you, God, for this day and all the wonderful gifts of life. We're especially grateful to have the opportunity to come together, to read and to study, to commit ourselves to lives of the Spirit that honor you and in the power and the strength of Christ and your Holy Spirit. We thank you for this church and all that it means to us, and the support and encouragement that we receive in our community here. And we are especially grateful for the years of service of Leola Greer. And we ask now that she is ill, that your hand would be of healing would be upon her, and that she would experience your love and compassion and your grace. And we ask that you would bring her back healthy to us. We are also mindful of the suffering in the world, both local and around the world, and we're especially concerned about the patients in the center of the home in Walnut, where they've had an outbreak of COVID. We ask that you would bring healing to people there, that you would bring comfort and peace to those who are isolated, and that you would that there would be an opportunity for the people there to experience the fullness of life again. We thank you for Teresa and her presence here, and we thank you and bless you for your servant Carol. We ask that you would be with her and her family as she is suffering, that you would bring compassion and peace into this circumstance, and healing, Lord, if it be your will. We thank you for that Teresa is there to bring some comfort to her, and we ask that you would give strength and encouragement to Teresa as she does so. And we are, of course, moved by the suffering in many parts of the world. Our hearts are especially broken for those in the Sudan who are experiencing not only war and violence, but also hunger. And we ask, Lord, that you would bring peace and healing to this nation, that there would bring, that somehow love and compassion would be exuded to the people who suffered so much there. We thank you again for opportunities of service fill us with the joy and encouragement that we need to be able to be of help and service to those around us. Pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you,
Amen.
everyone. Appreciate you very much.
Thanks.
Not going to thank fly that was flying around here, but he was certainly quite devout. He's still here. He heard me. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.